Chapter 992. The Juxian Manor was built in a grand and majestic manner, and it was hidden in the deep mountains and ancient forests. There were many formation patterns set up in the surroundings and it was shrouded in fog. Even if one came here by accident, they might not be able to enter successfully. Both Chu Lian and Mingxiu were astonished by the sight of the buildings. The guests here all had extraordinary auras. When they opened and closed their eyes, there was a divine light. Their qi and blood were like a boiling furnace, so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. The Spirit Emperor ordered someone to lead the way and led Chu Lian and Mingxiu in. At the same time, she also arranged for the two of them to stay. After doing all this, she smiled slightly and quickly disappeared into the various courtyards. Senior brother, I didn't expect such a magical place to exist here. It seems like they're really recruiting all the talents in the world. I feel that everyone here has unfathomable strength. Mingxiu's eyes were filled with amazement and curiosity as she sized up the place. After arriving here, Chu Lian also relaxed and nodded to himself. Not only were there strong men of foreign races with bare arms, there were also Taoists in Taoist robes with compasses in their hands, calculating something at all times. If not for the Spirit Emperor leading the way, they might not have found such a place. It was truly too mysterious. Furthermore, when they thought of the Spirit Emperor's words earlier on, her cousin, the mysterious young Master Gu, had established this place a long time ago. Didn't that mean that he had been considering whether to overthrow the rule of the mystical ruins royal family since a long time ago? That idea was exactly the same as Chu Lian's. However, Chu Lian's current strength and resources were not enough to support him in planning such things. This young Master Gu, you really trust us by bringing us here. It seems like he really admires you, cousin, Mingxiu said happily. Chu Lian smiled and looked around, but he did not see anyone following them. He shook his head. You can't say that. This young Master Gu is too mysterious and has many experts under him. Rather than saying that he trusts us, it's more accurate to say that he thinks that we won't be able to cause any trouble by bringing us here. Even if we reveal the secret of this place, he can definitely send people to kill us. It won't affect him or cause any losses. When Mingxiu heard this, she immediately looked unhappy and said, Senior brother, how can you think of her like that? Along the way, I haven't seen anyone treat us well. Chu Lian knew that she would be angry if he said that, but this was reality. Secretly plotting to overthrow the spiritual ruins royal family was a heinous crime that could easily lead to the execution of 9 generations of the family. If news of this were to spread and the royal family of the mystical ruins found out about it, even this mysterious young Master Gu would be in trouble. He didn't believe that young Master Gu would completely trust him and his junior sister just based on a few words from Miss Huang. However, he couldn't be too full of himself. I feel that young Master Gu should be trying to recruit me. These capable people under him are not ordinary. Even I am unable to see through the strength of many of them. After parting ways with junior martial sister, they returned to their respective courtyards. Chu Lian first carefully looked around, worried that he would be spied on. Only then did he return to the house and close the doors and windows. At the same time, ancient banners less than the size of a palm were thrown out by him and landed in the surroundings. The banners trembled and emitted a hazy glow that enveloped the surroundings. The hazy aura spread and instantly turned the place into a blur. Even existences that were far stronger than him would not be able to spy on this place. The 8-directional cloud rain banners that I obtained from signing in through the sphere of noble wishes can prevent others from spying on me with their spirit consciousnesses. Seems like it has its uses. Only then did Chu Lian heave a sigh of relief. His experiences since childhood made him very cautious. Even though that mysterious young Master Gu didn't have any ill intentions towards him along the way, he still had to be wary of others. This was especially so because he couldn't forget what the weapon spirit of the sphere of noble wishes told him in the Ghost Axe clan's territory. It's better to be safe than sorry. This young Master Gu's background is unknown and the black-robed old man beside him truly makes me uneasy. I have a feeling that he has been spying on me with ill intentions. Could the weapon spirit of the sphere of noble wishes be the black-robed old man beside young Master Gu that warned me? Chu Lien sat cross-legged on the bed as his expression changed. The sphere of noble wishes was his greatest reliance and secret. He couldn't let others know about it. If that black-robed old man sensed all of this and reported it to young Master Gu, would he still be able to keep the sphere of noble wishes? Weapon spirit. Thinking of this, Chu Lien began to summon the weapon spirit of the sphere of noble wishes in his mind, intending to communicate with it and ask some questions. However, the weapon spirit of the sphere of noble wishes still didn't have the slightest reaction. Ever since leaving the Ghost Axe clan's territory, it seemed to have fallen into a deep slumber. No matter how Chu Lien called, there was no response. Until now, he had used the 8-directional cloud rain banners to conceal the heavenly secrets of this place. However, the weapon spirit of the sphere of noble wishes still didn't have the slightest reaction. Could it be that some problem has occurred and it has really fallen into a deep slumber? Chu Lien racked his brains, but other than waiting, he couldn't find the slightest solution. On the other side, in a quiet and secluded courtyard, in front of Gu Chang'e, the Spirit Emperor was telling him about the Virtuous Gathering Manor. Naturally, the Virtuous Gathering Manor had nothing to do with Gu Chang'e. She was the one who secretly built it to recruit talents from all around the world. Her purpose was to monitor the world and solve some problems that the mystical ruins royal family couldn't solve on the surface. It was her sharp blade in the dark. As for why Gu Chang'e asked her to tell Chu Lien and the others that the Virtuous Gathering Manor was built to overthrow the rule of the mystical ruins royal family. All of this was to push the boat along with the current. After all, since Chu Lien wanted to be the savior of the world, saving the people from the abyss of suffering, Gu Chang'e was willing to help him. Thus, Gu Chang'e would fulfill his wish and fulfill his dream. Not only that, he could let Chu Lien accomplish all of this personally, to push the mystical ruins royal family down from their pedestal and establish his own dynasty, becoming the savior of the current era. Gu Chang'e could help Chu Lien lead this great drama of changing the dynasty and saving the people. After all, he wanted to have a good talk with Chu Lien about the treasure on him. Thus, the best way was to show the necessary sincerity first. Once that was done, it would naturally be easier to negotiate terms and conditions. Then, it would be better for them to discuss openly. In the Ghost Axe clan's territory, Gu Chang'e already had a plan when he sensed that the treasure had a spirit. He first restrained his aura and waited for the treasure's spirit to let down its guard before suddenly releasing his aura again. Sure enough, in this way, it was completely shocked, and it hurriedly sealed off all connections and senses with the outside world and fell into a deathly silent state. Therefore, it couldn't sense the many things that happened after that and didn't know that Gu Chang'e was the source of its fear. Then I'll do as you said, young master. The Spirit Emperor didn't know what Gu Chang'e's motive was and only followed his instructions. After she left, Gu Chang'e's gaze deepened and he waved his sleeve. Ripples spread out in the space in front of him and turned into a calm surface of water that reflected what was happening on the other side like a mirror. The terrifying army covered the sky and earth like locusts and flooded the Dao Chang true world. An endless army rushed out of the ancient worship of the immortal spirit civilization, as if they would never dry up. Beyond the Dao Chang true world, the world dike shuddered. Runic symbols shone like a flood and turned into ancient words that continued changing and intersecting with each other. Pillars of light shot out and shook the universe. They tore apart the laws and order, and a large amount of time fragments evaporated completely. This was an incredibly devastating battle. Both sides were fighting against each other without a care for their own lives. Corpses fell like rain into the endless darkness or turned into powder and blood on the spot. In the depths of time and space further away were existences at the level of immortal emperors fighting. The ripples of power seemed to want to split the world apart and spread from one end of the long river of time to the other. The entire river of time was illuminated. They stood in the depths of the fog, and their magical bodies had long since surpassed 100 million feet. At the instant the hand cut down, the great cosmoses were torn apart and exploded on the spot. A boundless amount of blood drowned out the great cosmoses around it. The existences in Tao realm had yet to join the battle. They were still observing, but a battle of this level was definitely rare to see. Once the existences in Tao realm fought, they could easily cause the endless space and time to fall into chaos. The great Tao would return to nothingness, and countless worlds and universes would be destroyed in an instant. There were plenty of figures standing tall on the ancient worship of the immortal spirit civilization. They were like ancient demonic shadows overlooking the Tao Chang true world, waiting for the right time to attack. The presences of those figures were not any weaker than the immortal emperors fighting. It was impossible for the battle to end within a short period of time. The immortal spirit civilization was still testing the waters, and the leaders of the various races in the Tao Chang true world were also watching. Gu Chang'e watched the battle calmly. There was not a hint of emotion on his face. However, when he noticed a battle beyond the world dike, he frowned. Nonsense. A tall and slender figure moved through the army like an invincible female sword immortal. Sword light moved through millions of leaves and let out loud clanging sounds. Her sword moved the universe and tore apart her enemies. A boundless sword aura surged and exploded. It was like a sun from the Tao of the sword that illuminated the heavens. It was incredibly powerful. Even existences with similar levels of cultivation found it difficult to withstand one of her slashes. They were beheaded, their nascent divinities disintegrated, and they exploded. For a period of time, cries of excitement could be heard from various battlefields. Beyond the Tao Chang true world, an even larger army surged towards the slender figure. Even the demonic shadows standing tall on the ancient worship noticed her and cast their gazes over. With me around, no one will be able to take half a step into the Tao Chang true world. Her voice was cold as she leaned against her sword. Her voice was ethereal and dazzling. It was not loud, but it spread through the entire battlefield. Kill! More soldiers surged towards her. Murderous aura surged into the sky and formed some sort of rune. Its might was even more astonishing. Due to her actions, the pressure on the other powerful warriors of the Tao Chang true world was greatly reduced. Gratitude and worry appeared on their faces. Gu Chang'e watched the scene reflected in the mirror. The expression on his calm face became even more solemn. Gu Xian, you've never let me worry. Isn't it good to follow the path I've arranged for you and walk to the peak step by step? Do you really want me to bind you to my side? Gu Chang'e mumbled. The figure stood tall in the universe. Her black hair and white dress were dyed in blood, but it did not affect her speed or the piercing killing intent at the center of her brows. Her originally ethereal appearance had long since changed. She looked like a female Azura bathed in blood. Her methods were also incredibly fierce. It was clear that she had been honed a lot in the battles over the years. Gu Chang'e cast a glance at her. When he saw that she did not do anything too arrogant and that her strength was steadily increasing, he calmed down. Gu Xian, might have always acted like a fool in front of him. However, it did not mean that she was an idiot who would do something as risky as throwing an egg at a rock. The battle might have been filled with life and death dangers, but it was a suitable training for her and could allow her to grow quickly. Gu Chang'e understood Gu Xian's personality very well, which was why he did not say anything else. It was impossible for her to let the immortal spirit civilization's army attack the Tao Chang true world without doing anything. However, compared to the safe path he had arranged for her since a long time ago, Gu Xian would rather choose the path filled with thorns, danger, and the unknown. Buzz! Gu Chang'e swung his arm again and wiped away the scene before his eyes. Out of sight, out of mind. This girl always made him feel uneasy. Gu Chang'e had not seen her for a long time, and he missed her a little. However, at that moment, he only wanted to hold her down and beat her up through space and time. But by the looks of it, someone has stretched their hands into the Tao Chang true world. I won't allow anyone to touch my territory. Gu Chang'e returned to his senses. When he sensed the Tao Chang true world just now, he had coincidentally seen another Tao realm existence. He might have left a Tao law magical body in the Heaven Attacking Alliance's headquarters, but it was only to prevent accidents from happening and not be able to protect the people around him. He usually sat in the depths of endless space and did not interfere with anything. If he had not sensed it just now, he would not have known that someone had stretched their hands into the Tao Chang true world. Gu Chang'e wanted to know who had the guts to plot against the Tao Chang true world right under his nose. I'd like to see who is scheming against me. Gu Chang'e's eyes were profound. In an instant, he made millions of deductions in his heart. With his mind, he moved through endless space and time to search through every inch of space and corner. When he made deductions from the past to the future, he had to find that strand of karma. When that person was scheming against the Tao Chang true world, he had formed a karmic connection with him. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for Gu Chang'e to make deductions about his existence. It was especially so for some Tao realm existences. They could escape all karma and not be tainted by any space-time connections. Chapter 993. Gu Chang'e's gaze was profound. In an instant, millions of thoughts appeared in his mind, covering every inch of space and time in an attempt to deduce who was scheming against the Tao Chang true world. In truth, when he met a man in the Tao Chang true world, he had noticed it a long time ago. However, he did not pay much attention to it at that time. He thought that it might just be an accident and that a man's appearance in the Tao Chang true world was purely a coincidence. After all, outliers were rare existences. If they were truly outliers, how could they be allowed to appear in another true world? It was especially so when a man was going through a trial of life and death that could be said to be a dream within a dream. If Gu Chang'e had not exposed her, she might have continued to sink into that dream that she could not wake up from and search for the truth that she could not break through. Gu Chang'e was not surprised by this trial. At that time, he only thought that a man had a great background. There was a high possibility that she came from another true world and ended up in this place by accident. Then, she went through a trial in the Tao Chang true world. The disciples of some of the supreme true worlds in the vast expanse would often be asked to head to some desolate places to undergo trials. Only by passing the trials would they have the right to improve their status and become inner sect disciples or true disciples. They would then be able to learn the true Tao's skills and divine abilities of the Tao orthodoxy. At that time, Gu Chang'e had deliberately left a mark on a man's body to determine her origin so that he could use her in the future. A man was not from the Tao Chang true world, and she was not tainted by its presence. The land she lived in was called the Savage Continent. It was originally one of the origins of the Berserkers and had no connection to her. Unfortunately, during the many cycles of life and death, she had forgotten her past and always believed that she was a Berserker. As the last princess of the Berserker tribe, she shouldered the heavy responsibility of saving the Berserkers and fighting against the immortal Tao. At the same time, she wanted to search for the truth behind the god of Berserkers' disappearance. However, she did not know that the real first god of Berserkers was watching them coldly from another true world. He treated the tribe leaders of the Berserkers who sought the truth and the other gods of Berserkers as food. Among them was naturally her current adoptive father, the tribe leader of the Berserker tribe. The elder a man had always revered was the true master behind the first god of Berserkers. He was also one of the main culprits behind this beautiful dream. She had reincarnated 193 times in this process, experiencing death, rebirth, and the cycle repeated itself. Gradually, she had forgotten her past and her origins. When Gu Chang'e accidentally saw her, he did not feel much pity for her. As for this young girl with a tragic fate, he only wanted to nurture her for his own use, and in the future, she would be able to help him harvest providence. But later on, he saw a shadow of the former Chan Hongyi in Wild. She was stubborn, unyielding, and patient. Only then did he feel some compassion for her and point out some of the truth for her. He also carefully taught her and passed down a cultivation method to help her break through the situation. In addition, Wild had a demon heart. If nothing unexpected happened, she was destined to become a demon in the future. Gu Chang'e had awakened her demonic heart in advance, which could be considered as making it easier for her to take that step. If he had not pointed it out, Wild would have seen through everything sooner or later and experienced the pain. Only extreme hatred could make the demon heart truly transform and awaken. Perhaps this was also the true goal of the person who planned this trial behind the scenes. Gu Chang'e did not think too much about it at that time. He just thought that Wild's trial was a coincidence. Once he thought about it again, he immediately felt that the motive of the person who planned all of this was definitely not simple. Wild might have appeared in the Dao Chang true world because that person had personally sent her there. Besides that person, there is another person who is scheming against the Dao Chang true world. Could it be that there is still some secret in the Dao Chang true world that I don't know about? Many thoughts flashed through Gu Chang'e's mind. He connected the matter with Wild to the Dao realm ancient monk who had appeared in the Dao Chang true world. When he had turned into the demon lord and walked the world, it was purely a coincidence that he had saved Qing Yi, who was a true spirit. At that time, he had not chosen a suitable true world to live in seclusion and had not started his own plan. However, he had coincidentally seen Qing Yi leading an army to fight against the Great Liquidation, which was why he had thought of it. As for why he would get closer to Qing Yi and live in seclusion in the true mountain and sea world, he had just gone with the flow and let nature take its course. Looks like this presence is just as I expected. It does come from the 9 heavens. While Gu Chang'e was deep in thought, he finally captured the karmic connection and confirmed the identity of the person who had plotted against the Dao Chang true world. However, if it came from the 9 heavens, then he could ignore it for the time being. After all, he still had another chess piece in the 9 heavens that was even deeper in his plans. Gu Chang'e did not want to get involved with the 9 heavens for the time being, but sooner or later, he would have to take action against them. The 9 heavens might seem to have a transcendent status in the vast expanse, but there were legends about them in all the worlds. They were the legendary source of the immortal Tao. However, in Gu Chang'e's eyes, the 9 heavens were more like the final resting place of the incarnations of the heavens who had been destroyed during the Great Liquidation. They were rather unique. In terms of power and resources alone, they were far inferior to those supreme true worlds. Once he confirmed who had plotted against the Dao Chang true world, Gu Chang'e had another plan. He could take advantage of the situation, and when the time came for him to take action against the 9 heavens, it would save him a lot of trouble. Once the royal family of Spirit Ruins army was gathered, Gu Chang'e planned to send them to attack the immortal spirit civilization. The immortal spirit civilization might not be able to compare to the supreme civilizations, but among the ancient civilizations, it was still above average. It was definitely not something the Spirit Ruins civilization could compare to. Once they conquered the immortal spirit civilization's world, it would save Gu Chang'e a lot of time in gathering resources. After all, he was going to do something that was no different from creating a new world for the entire vast expanse. If he did not have enough resources to support it, how could he do it? Chu Lian's matter was just a small interlude. He would not put too much effort into it. In the sage-gathering manner, Sovereign Ling personally came to Chu Lian's courtyard and sat in front of the stone bench. She was also following Gu Chang'e's instructions and telling Chu Lian that she intended to recruit him. My cousin admires you quite a bit, young Master Chu Lian. He thinks that you have the potential to be a commander and will definitely achieve great things in the future. With your help, it won't be a problem for you to overthrow the royal family of Spirit Ruins rule. Sovereign Ling spoke with a smile. Her posture was elegant and dignified. Her sleeves were wide, her hair was like the clouds, her neck was snow white, her legs were straight and slender, and her skirt dragged on the ground. Her words and actions showed the good upbringing of a lady from a noble family. Chu Lien was frowning because the artifact spirit of the Great Wish Ball did not respond to him. Sovereign Ling's sudden visit surprised him, but also made him feel much better. After all, a beauty was right in front of him, and her gentle words were indeed pleasing to the eye. Senior brother, look, even Miss Huang personally came to recruit you. It's enough to show how much young Master Gu values you. His junior sister, Ming Xiu, also said with a grin. She could tell that her senior brother had a good impression of Miss Huang. During the journey, he would occasionally pay attention to Miss Huang's actions. Go to one side, I have something to discuss with Miss Huang. Chu Lien waved his hand, asking this eyesore junior sister to leave quickly. It was rare for him to have a chance to talk to Miss Huang alone and ask her some questions. Sovereign Ling had a smile on her face and her actions were elegant and calm. There was an entire stone table between her and Chu Lien, maintaining a distance that was neither close nor distant. After Mingxiu left, Chu Lien also sat down on the stone bench and couldn't help but say, Miss Huang, along the way, you and I can be considered to have a pleasant conversation. I believe you have some understanding of my character and know that I am not the kind of person who will be ordered around by others and depend on others. I can only say that I appreciate young Master Gu's good intentions. I also admire his actions. He has done something that I have always wanted to do but did not have the ability to do. I hope that Miss Huang will thank him for his good intentions in front of young Master Gu when you return. Now that the artifact spirit of the Great Wish Ball did not move, Chu Lien did not know if this place was safe or dangerous. Was that black-robed old man the person he was worried about? Therefore, he could only reject temporarily and think of a way to leave this place first. Although he also wanted to achieve great things and overthrow the tyrannical rule of the spiritual ruins royal family, purge the world and restore peace. Young Master Chu Lien, you don't have to be in a hurry to reject, you can consider it again. Cousin's power is beyond your imagination. If you become his guest, he can give you many benefits that you can't imagine. Be it strength or resources, he can help you. Moreover, I think that young Master Chu Lien is in urgent need of some resources. Even if you don't need them, your junior sister should need them. Moreover, young Master Chu Lien should have other relatives behind him, you can consider it more, Sovereign Ling said with a smile. She was not surprised that Chu Lien would reject immediately. Because this was also within Gu Changa's instructions and expectations. Her main purpose now was to inform Chu Lien that Gu Changa was interested in recruiting him. In essence, she wanted Chu Lien to trust them as much as possible and let down his guard. Chu Lien was actually a little moved when he heard this. Although he had the help of the Great Wish Ball, cultivation resources were still a huge expense. Besides that, Sovereign Ling was right. His junior sister's cultivation resources, how could he not consider these? There were other things that did not need to be said. Since Miss Huang has said so, I will think about it again. Chu Lien replied and then looked at Sovereign Ling. However, compared to this, I am more curious about the relationship between Miss Huang and young Master Gu. I think that you two are not cousins, right? Along the way, Miss Huang has been very respectful to him. Moreover, she has removed her veil in front of young Master Gu. If not for his meticulous observation, it would be difficult for him to notice these details. Every time she walked out of the carriage, there would be a slight change in the veil on Sovereign Ling's face. This meant that she had removed her veil when she returned to the carriage. In front of them, she had always worn a veil and did not show her face. Sovereign Ling was slightly stunned when she heard this. She did not expect Chu Lien to say such straightforward words. Moreover, how could he tell? She thought that her performance was good and did not show any abnormalities along the way. However, Chu Lien was right about another point. Apart from in front of Gu Changa, she had worn a veil the rest of the time. She was the empress of the royal family of the mystical ruins, the youngest Dao realm existence. How could she show her face in front of outsiders? Young Master Chu Lien is really observant to see through this. However, it is not convenient for me to tell you about my relationship with my cousin. I hope you don't mind. My cousin's identity and status is not something that I can reach or look up to. Although he is usually gentle, he still has to show respect. Sovereign Ling smiled and shook her head without revealing too much. Hearing this, Chu Lien was enlightened. It was similar to his guess. After all, the strength of the black-robed old man was unfathomable. However, these words coming from the mouth of a woman he had a good impression of made him feel uncomfortable and uncomfortable. Then, the two of them talked about some other matters before Sovereign Ling stood up and left to report. Chu Lien felt a little regretful. He had a good impression of Sovereign Ling, but she seemed to only treat him as a friend. Instead, she seemed to be full of respect and admiration towards young Master Gu. This feeling made him feel very jealous. However, he was not someone who cared about romantic feelings. He had more important things in his heart. Not long after Sovereign Ling left, Chu Lien was pleasantly surprised to find that the weapon spirit of the Sphere of Great Wishes seemed to have awakened and started to respond to his words. He hurriedly used the 8-directional cloud rain flag to conceal the heavenly secrets of this place to prevent anyone from spying. Then, he hurriedly asked and threw all the doubts and questions he had during this period of time to the weapon spirit of the Sphere of Great Wishes. The weapon spirit of the Sphere of Great Wishes had sealed off its connection with the outside world during this period of time, so it did not know what had happened. Only after Chu Lien finished explaining everything did it understand. At that time, in the land of your clan, that terrifying aura that had suddenly disappeared returned. It seemed to have sensed that something was amiss and turned back. I was frightened and knew that something was wrong. I was worried that something unexpected would happen, so I resolutely cut off all connection with the outside world to prevent the owner of that terrifying aura from detecting it. The weapon spirit of the Sphere of Great Wishes explained. While Chu Lien was enlightened, he was also shocked and broke out in cold sweat. If not for its explanation, he would not have known how dangerous and terrifying the situation was at that time. Chapter 994. The weapon spirit of the noble sphere was like a flickering ball of light. It floated around in Chu Lien's mind, flashing with a mysterious aura. Its tone was very cold, and there were not many ripples in its voice. But now, there was a trace of fear that could not be detected. If we didn't cut off the connection with the outside world in time, we wouldn't have been able to leave that place. I've only seen such a terrifying existence on the most powerful person in the civilization that created the noble sphere. He was the first owner of the noble sphere. I don't know why such a terrifying aura would appear in such a weak civilization. I just don't know if the terrifying existence you're talking about noticed our abnormality. Chu Lien could not help but ask. He was indeed afraid. If he had not left decisively or stayed for a while longer, he might have really been targeted by that indescribable terrifying existence. However, he did not forget to ask the weapon spirit of the noble sphere about the current safety situation of the village of worthies. He was really worried about the mysterious Sir Gu and the black-robed old man beside him. They gave Chu Lien a sense of fear and uneasiness. I don't think so. If they did, the owner of that terrifying aura would not have let you leave safely, the weapon spirit of the noble sphere explained. If it was really captured by that unknown existence, it could only be destroyed along with the noble sphere. The remaining energy in the noble sphere was not enough to continue binding a host. Moreover, according to the rules set by the civilization that created the noble sphere, once the noble sphere recognized an owner, it had to prioritize protecting the owner's life. Other minor details could be abandoned. As the weapon spirit of the noble sphere, it could not interfere with the noble sphere's choice of owner. At most, it could only be considered as the host's guide. Apart from that, its existence was also bound together with the noble sphere and the host. Unless it could really destroy the noble sphere, it could only follow the rules and be destroyed like the host. The weapon spirit of the noble sphere was an independent consciousness to the noble sphere. It had been through many hosts. If there were no accidents, Chu Lien should be the last host. The previous hosts did not manage to reach the level of the first host. They all died along the way. At the same time, the sphere of noble aspirations had also experienced unimaginable damage. It was almost irreversible. I've already probed this virtuous gathering manner. There's no danger that you're worried about. As for that young Master Gu, he's indeed mysterious. He should have some sort of treasure that can conceal his cultivation. I can't see through it in a short while. As for that black-robed old man, judging from the aura he revealed, he's not far from the Tao realm. To have an existence that almost stepped into the Tao realm as a servant, that young Master Gu's origin is probably not simple. I suspect that he might not be a living being from this civilization. Instead, he might have come from an even more ancient and powerful civilization. Even the inheritors of the civilization that created me might not necessarily receive such treatment at such a young age to have a being that is close to entering the Tao realm as a servant. The artifact spirit of the sphere of noble aspirations began to explain. Although it was unable to use the energy within the sphere of noble wishes, it could use its intelligence to infer and determine the strength of Gu Chang'e and the black-robed old man. To it, wisdom was indeed the most miraculous and powerful force in the world. When Chu Lien heard this explanation, he could not help but be stunned. This was a direction and possibility that he had never thought of. Artifact spirit, you're saying that young Master Gu might have come from an even more ancient and powerful civilization? That he's not from the true spirit ruins world? He could not help but ask. He was simply too shocked and found it hard to believe. If it was true, then this was the first time he had come into contact with a living being from another civilization, and in such a manner. Before this, Chu Lien had only learned about other civilizations from his master who had adopted him. However, that was all in the ancient records. He had never thought that he would actually run into them. The artifact spirit of the sphere of noble aspirations said with certainty, there's a 90% chance of that happening. If he's a living being from the true spirit ruins world, then no matter how great his background is, it's impossible for him to have an existence that almost stepped into the Tao realm protect him. Even the royal family of the true spirit ruins world that you want to overthrow does not have such a foundation and qualifications. In truth, it was also very moved. While it was asleep, Chu Lien had unexpectedly come into contact with such a person. Could this be the so-called anomaly where one's luck was so astonishing that they could coincidentally meet a benefactor? Chu Lien was completely stunned. He truly did not expect that the mysterious young Master Gu would have such a terrifying background. Compared to his background, the royal family of the true spirit ruins world was not even worth mentioning. He swallowed his saliva and suddenly understood why Miss Huang would say such words to him. She probably knew about young Master Gu's background. However, due to some reason, they addressed each other as cousins. In that instant, Chu Lien figured out many things. However, he still had another question in his heart and could not help but ask, Artifact Spirit, since you said that this young Master Gu has such a terrifying background, why did he appear in the world of the true spirit ruins world and seem to be staying here for a long time? That was also what he did not understand. When it heard that, the artifact spirit of the Grand Wish Ball was not surprised and answered calmly, Host, your vision is still too narrow. You only know about the true spirit ruins world, but you don't know how many terrifying ancient civilizations were born in the vast expanse. Before these civilizations, the true spirit ruins world is not even worth mentioning. The territories under the jurisdiction of the giant forces of power in those civilizations span an unknown amount of time and space. It is difficult to imagine. Even the ancient true worlds can only rely on them. And the successors or disciples of those giant forces of power will be sent to many places to train and train before they succeed to the throne. After hearing this explanation, Chu Lien finally reacted. He nodded his head and said in realization, I know. The reason why young Master Gu appeared in the spiritual mound civilization is very likely to be because of the training of the faction behind him. That black-robed elder is a protector in charge of his safety. The artifact spirit of the Grand Wish Ball said, "Your luck is really good to appear in the eyes of such a person. Besides, he is very young and has a bright future ahead of him. You are highly regarded by him. If you have the chance in the future, leave the true spirit ruins world and wander the vast expanse. It is also good karma." Chu Lien knew what it meant. However, his current goal was to overthrow the rule of the royal family of the true spirit ruins world and return peace to this world. Besides, how should he say it? He always felt a little uncomfortable in front of young Master Gu. He felt that the other party's tone and expression were always calm and looking down on him, as if he was standing in a very high world and looking down on all life. His tone was always unhurried and calm, as if there was nothing that could shock him. Even the women he had a good impression of were full of admiration and reverence for him. If I have the chance in the future, I will definitely leave the true spirit ruins world and visit other civilizations, Chu Lien thought to himself with longing and yearning in his eyes. With the Grand Wish Ball's explanation, he was completely at ease and no longer thought about leaving the virtuous gathering manor. At the same time, for junior sister's sake, I have to stay and become a guest elder. After making his decision, Chu Lien went straight to the point and found the Spirit Emperor to explain his intentions. However, he still pretended to consider for a long time before reluctantly staying behind as a guest of young Master Gu. Cousin has many guests under him and there are many capable people. According to their strength and methods, they are divided into 3 levels, heaven, earth, and mortal. The salary and benefits of each level of guest elder are also different. It can even be described as the difference between heaven and earth. Originally, according to the rules, if young Master Chu Lien becomes a guest elder, he has to go through some trials before he can be awarded a guest elder token. However, because young Master Chu Lien is more familiar with me, cousin made an exception and directly made young Master Chu Lien a heaven-ranked guest elder to enjoy the highest salary and resources. In the courtyard, the Spirit Emperor had a graceful figure and jade-like skin that shone with a moving luster. She led a large group of people over. With a smile, she read out the rules and requirements of being a guest elder to Chu Lien, as well as the salary. At the same time, she also got someone to hand an ancient token with the word heaven engraved on it to Chu Lien. As she spoke, the group of people brought over by the Spirit Emperor moved boxes of rare treasures over and placed them in the courtyard. There were Dharma artifacts, Taoist scriptures, mystic arts, jade bones. Instantly, immortal clouds rose and treasure mist surged. It was as if they had arrived at a treasure trove, with dazzling divine light everywhere. Some of the treasure chests were opened, releasing a strong medicinal fragrance that made one's pores open and become immortals. These are the starting salaries. The Spirit Emperor said with a smile. These heavenly treasures were considered rare and precious divine items in the spiritual mound civilization. They were priceless. Cultivators at the immortal Tao level would fight for them with all their might. Chu Lien looked at the dazzling light and medicinal fragrance in the courtyard and was speechless for a long time. Even though he was already prepared, he was still shocked and his head was buzzing. What did it mean to be rich? This was what it meant to be rich. Even though he had a supreme treasure like the noble ball, he could not help but swallow his saliva and look away for a long time. Chu Lien finally understood why the Grand Wish Sphere's artifact spirit would say those words. Just the salary he bestowed was already so frightening. How frightening would the treasures and wealth he had on him be? It was probably unimaginable. And this was only the tip of the iceberg of young Master Gu's background. Senior brother, in the courtyard, Mingxiu, who had also witnessed this scene, was also in a daze for a long time. This was the first time she had seen so much wealth and she wondered if she had seen wrongly. Especially when there were many treasures that were compatible with her cultivation. At this moment, Mingxiu was envious of her senior brother. This was only the first day of being young Master Gu's guest and he had already obtained so many treasures. If he was valued highly, how shocking would the rewards be? She did not dare to think about it. Miss Huang, I would like to know what one has to do to become young Master Gu's guest. It's impossible to obtain so many treasures for no reason. Chu Lien recovered with great difficulty, but there was still a trace of shock in his eyes and he could not help but ask. He did not believe that this young Master Gu was purely doing a good deed and did not have any ulterior motives. He was just giving out a salary and supporting a group of guests. Young Master Chu Lien will know about this in the future. I can't tell you about it now. Just focus on cultivating and raising your strength. Of course, as a guest, young Master Chu Lien will need to follow my cousin's instructions in the future. There are rules and regulations in this token. If young Master Chu Lien accepts it, you can refine it. And once you refine it, it means that young Master Chu Lien will be bound by the agreement. You have to look carefully. The Spirit Emperor still had a faint smile on his face as he explained to Chu Lien. He even kindly reminded him. Chu Lien had already expected this. It was impossible that there were no corresponding restrictions. So he immersed his mind in this token and quickly looked at the contents of the agreement. It was an equal agreement and would not force him to do anything that was against benevolence, righteousness, and morality. He still had some reservations and asked the weapon spirit of the noble ball to help him see if there were any problems with the agreement. After getting a definite answer, he was relieved to refine it. It was considered that he had signed this agreement and a binding force was formed in the unseen world. After doing all this, the Spirit Emperor returned to report on his mission, satisfied. Chu Lien originally wanted to keep her and say a few more words, but when he saw this scene, he felt sad and regretful. I suggest that the host should not have any ideas about this woman. She should not be a simple person. Furthermore, she seems to be highly regarded by that young Master Gu. If you get too close to her, it will inevitably displease that young Master Gu and create more complications. This will not be beneficial to your current development. Now that the host is living under someone else's roof, it's best not to cross that line. There is a hierarchy. The weapon spirit of the noble ball's voice rang in Chu Lien's mind, reminding him. Chu Lien naturally knew this. He was not someone who only cared about his personal feelings and forgot about other things. With these resources, my strength can be greatly improved and I will soon break through to the immortal Tao level. Then, his eyes burned with passion as he looked at the piles of wealth that were shrouded in immortal light. On the other side, the Spirit Emperor had also returned to Gu Chang'e's side to report on the matter of recruiting Chu Lien. You did well. In a while, go find some people and create some trouble for him. You can't let him be too calm. It's reasonable to arrange some face-slapping scenes for him so that he won't be suspicious. After that, you can arrange for more experts to be brought out for training. At the right time, you can recruit him into the army and let him fight with the soldiers. Gu Chang'e nodded and instructed. Chapter 995. Yes, young master. Although the Soul Emperor was puzzled by Gu Chang'e's instructions, she did not ask too much. In her opinion, since Chu Lien was an anomaly, there was naturally something unusual about him. She could not treat him like an ordinary person. And what Gu Chang'e was doing now, she might be plotting something. Gu Chang'e was quite satisfied with the Soul Emperor's efficiency and intelligence. He could not help but think of Yin Mei. In the upper realm, Yin Mei was also like this when she worked for him. He did not need to explain or tell her anything and she would naturally do a good job. This was why it was easier for a smart woman to win his favor. I have a strand of something that is very beneficial to your cultivation. After you return, completely refine it. It can increase your chances of passing the second heavenly blight tribulation by 80%. Thinking of this, Gu Chang'e opened his sleeve and a palm-sized crystal jade bottle appeared in his hand. Specks of starlight filled the air, giving off a magnificent and mysterious feeling. This was the immortal substance and creation substance that he had condensed some time ago. It could help Tao realm existences break through bottlenecks and increase their cultivation strength. However, the immortal substance and creation substance were very rare and could only be extracted and condensed from the vast power of destiny. With Gu Changa's current ability, condensing the immortal substance and creation substance would take a lot of time. Moreover, the process was very boring and long. He could give the Soul Emperor a strand because he felt that she was very smart and would be of great use to him in the future. Young Master. Hearing this, the Soul Emperor was stunned and looked over in confusion. She did not understand what Gu Changa meant. Her puzzled gaze fell on the sparkling white jade bottle. A substance that could increase her chances of passing the second heavenly blight tribulation by 80%. She'd never heard that such a mysterious substance existed in the world, and all existences that had attained the Tao realm were all peerless and terrifying figures that had dominated numerous eras. On this path, they comprehended the essence of the Tao and comprehended the method of transcendence. They had experienced many hardships and tribulations. However, she had never heard of a mysterious substance that could help Tao realm existences cultivate. This was because it required them to continuously accumulate magic power and break through restrictions and shackles. Gu Changa was not surprised by Ling Huang's reaction. Those in the Tao realm couldn't understand the essence and development of Tao, nor could they understand the evolution of matter. Because this was a cognitive process of Tao realm cultivation. Only when they were in this realm could they break through the restrictions of the natural order of life and develop inconceivable wisdom, would they be able to understand what the Tao realm was and what the material realm was. And at this time, even if he explained to them in an extravagant manner, they would not be able to understand, and would only be more puzzled and at a loss. The substance in the small bottle is something that Tao realm existences need to cultivate. It doesn't matter if you don't understand it. As long as you refine it, you will naturally experience its benefits. Could it be that you still think that I want to harm you? Gu Changa smiled and explained to her with an easygoing expression. Ling Huang didn't think that Gu Changa would harm her. Instead, she pursed her lips and smiled, "Of course I don't think that you will harm me. I just feel touched that you are explaining to me so patiently." She received the small white jade bottle. However, before she opened it and touched the substance inside, she felt an instinctive urge to swallow it. This made the smile on Ling Huang's face disappear. She stared at the small white jade bottle in her hand and became shocked, a little surprised, and a little incredulous. This was an indescribable feeling. It was like someone who had been hungry for a long time and suddenly saw a delicious meal. Or like someone who had been walking in the desert for a long time without drinking water and suddenly saw a lake in front of them. This was an instinct that came from one's soul. It was uncontrollable and unexplainable. It was as if it was innate. Young Master, what substance is in this bottle? Why does it make me want to refine it so badly? My consciousness tells me that it is very important to me. Ling Huang's voice trembled slightly and was full of disbelief. A Tao realm existence could completely hide their karma and not be tainted by fate. They could eliminate all thoughts and thoughts. How could they not control their own instincts? And now, she was struggling to control her instincts so that she wouldn't do anything bad. She finally understood what Gu Changa meant when he said those words. There really was a substance in this world that could help a Tao realm existence cultivate. This was something that could cause a group of Tao realm existences to kill each other madly. Even if it was just a strand, it could change the color of the sky and dye time and space red. Even if I tell you now, you won't be able to understand what it is. However, you can understand it as spiritual energy in the eyes of mortals and immortal energy in the eyes of cultivators. Spiritual energy can help a cultivator cultivate and also allow a mortal to be reborn and live longer. As for immortal energy, it allows a cultivator to comprehend the changes of the immortal Tao and undergo an unimaginable transformation. Gu Changa's gaze was calm and he faintly smiled. What he said was just a simple description. Naturally, it wasn't enough to explain the mysterious nature of the immortal substance and the creation substance. However, the Spirit Emperor also vaguely understood the preciousness of this material. She couldn't hide her excitement. Her beautiful face was flushed with excitement as she said gratefully, "Young master, thank you so much. Thank you, young master, for bestowing me with such a precious item. Ling Huang is extremely grateful. I will do my best to serve young master and not disappoint young master." This was her sincere expression, and it was difficult for her to calm down. Not only her, but even the group of old ancestors and the white bone ancestor king wouldn't be able to calm down and treat this lightly. What were Tao realm existences most worried about? Naturally, it was the heavens blight tribulation that they couldn't pass. Celestials had 5 blights and Tao realm existences had 9 blights. Although every time they passed a blight, their strength would undergo an earth-shattering change. But if they couldn't pass the heavens blight tribulation, their body and soul would be destroyed and their Tao would vanish. And it could be said that the majority of existences would turn into dust and disappear. For Ling Huang, if she didn't have a heaven-defying opportunity or a way to change her fate in the future, she might stop before the second heaven's blight tribulation. Therefore, after learning that Chu Lian had a supreme treasure on him, she had schemed and plotted to seize it. "You worked hard for me, so I naturally won't treat you unfairly." Gu Changde smiled. Ling Huang was excited and only wanted to go back and refine this mysterious substance, so Gu Changde didn't let her continue to stay by his side. Although it was just a strand of the creation substance, it was enough for Ling Huang to refine for a long time. For Gu Changde, this was just a catalyst. The development and changes that would follow were what he valued. After Ling Huang refined this strand of immortal substance, her strength would definitely undergo a great leap forward. Although it wasn't enough for her to immediately pass the second heaven's blight tribulation and enter the middle stage of the illusory Tao realm, it would give her a greater chance of success. As long as the ancestors of the spiritual ruins weren't blind, they would be able to see Ling Huang's change. Similarly, Ancestor White Bone, who pursued strength all his life, would definitely be able to see it. And Ling Huang's change only appeared after she followed Gu Changde and worked loyally for him. What did this mean? Ancestor King White Bone and the group of spiritual Mound Imperial ancestors should be able to guess. Therefore, they will definitely try to find a way to get information from the Spirit Emperor. However, with the Spirit Emperor's intelligence, he will definitely not reveal anything. Therefore, they can only start with me. The only way is to gain my favor and work for me loyally. Only then will they be rewarded. Gu Changde let out a soft chuckle. A strand of immortal substance and creation substance was enough for him to truly use the entire spiritual ruins. This was much simpler and more practical than any sort of threat. How could increasing his own strength be more important than prolonging the life of the spiritual ruins world behind him? Time passed quickly. It had been half a month since Ling Huang received the immortal substance and creation substance from Gu Changde and returned to the palace to refine them. Gu Changde might have lived in seclusion and stayed in the virtuous gathering mountain villa, but he was also paying attention to the overall movements of the spiritual ruins royal family. He currently didn't have much energy to refine the immortal substance and creation substance. He could only wait for Ling Huang to come out of seclusion so that she could collect the power of providence gathered by the spiritual ruins royal family over the years. During this period of time, the spiritual ruins royal family continued to recruit troops. Brilliant light shone in the various greater worlds, and divine light shot into the clouds. Flying ships and warships crossed space one after another and gathered continuously. The vast and mighty army was assembled in preparation for the upcoming war. This was an incredibly terrifying force with nearly 100 immortal kings. They could completely wipe out many of the new civilizations. Of course, this was different from the army that was currently fighting against the Dao Chang True World. On this ancient warship, all the forces of the spiritual ruins world were gathered. Aside from the 100 immortal kings, there was also a considerable number of quasi-immortal emperors and immortal emperors. After all, this was an order personally given by the oldest group of progenitors of the spiritual ruins royal family. All the powerhouses in the 8 greater worlds did not dare to disobey. Over the years, the spiritual ruins royal family had raised hundreds of millions of battle-type tribes. These tribes had no intelligence. As long as they were provided with enough food and resources, they could grow madly. They were like chives that grew again and again after being cut. There were countless tribes like this in the lesser worlds under each greater world's jurisdiction. Unless the small world was destroyed or the resources were completely exhausted, these tribes would be able to rapidly develop and multiply in a very short period of time. In a war between civilizations, these domesticated races were often the weapons at the forefront of the war. Gu Chang'e was quite satisfied with the overall situation of the spiritual ruins royal family. Right then, they only needed to confirm the coordinates of the immortal spirit civilization in the vast expanse before invading and occupying it. He was also paying attention to Chu Lien. Based on his various actions during this period of time, he guessed that the supreme treasure Chu Lien had obtained might be related to the power of Kismet. When the powerful civilizations in the vast expanse reached the peak of their power, they would usually create one or several supreme treasures to stabilize the river of Kismet and prevent the decline of their power. Comparatively speaking, the supreme treasures of each civilization were different. They had different mysteries and different focuses. Naturally, there were also differences in strength. Some focused on offense, some focused on defense. Supreme treasures related to the power of Kismet were very rare. For Chu Lien to be able to obtain a supreme treasure created by a civilization, his luck was naturally not simple. Based on what Gu Chang'e knew, the spiritual ruins royal family did not have the right and foundation to create supreme treasures. Based on the current situation, Chu Lien and the vessel spirit of the supreme treasure he obtained did not seem to have realized what was going on. They were not very wary of Gu Chang'e. Instead, they thought that he was very likely a young disciple of an ancient civilization who had descended here to participate in the trial. Gu Chang'e had not thought of playing such an identity at first. However, during this period of time, he had some understanding and guesses after interacting with Chu Lien's junior sister. 2 Chu Lien had not completely let down his guard against him, but his junior sister was rather naive. Gu Chang'e sent someone to casually send some things to express his concern, which made her have a good impression of him. In the following few interactions and conversations, she could not help but mention some things that Chu Lien had said to her. This included guessing Gu Chang'e's background. Of course, it was not that Mingxiu was too stupid. It was just that her senior brother, Chu Lien, had been sent out by Gu Chang'e with a random reason. He had asked him to lead the rest of the guests and reverends to eliminate a demon that was causing chaos in a certain place. That was why Mingxiu could only stay in Assembly of Sages Mountain Villa alone. Besides cultivating, she was also rather bored. Some time ago, Chu Lien had spent a lot of effort and paid a huge price to convince all the guests and reverends to acknowledge his identity as a heaven guest. This also led to Mingxiu, who was his junior sister, being ostracized in Assembly of Sages Mountain Villa and did not have many friends. She was not old to begin with, and was in the prime of her life. She was not too wary of Gu Chang'e, who had given her and her senior brother a large amount of wealth. After learning about all of this, Gu Chang'e conveniently confirmed Chu Lien's and that treasure's tool spirit's guess, and dispatched people to give them another task to complete. They also gave Gu Chang'e an idea. With his current strength and the power of the army under his control, it was actually very difficult for him to take down a supreme true world that had noticed something. It was just like the Sudan true world that the grand ancestor of the spirit ruins, Wanyan Xiu, had mentioned. If he could not forcefully attack them on the surface, then why could he not change his perspective and train of thought? Chapter 996. It had to be said that Chu Lien and the artifact spirit's guess gave Gu Chang'e some inspiration. After thinking about it, he felt that it was very feasible and would be much more convenient in his next plan. However, he had not found a second suitable target and could only put this matter aside for now. Half a month later, Emperor Ling woke up from her seclusion. She was originally at the early stage of the Void Dao realm, which meant that she had just passed the first heavenly blight tribulation. The strength she had accumulated was far from enough to touch the threshold of the second heavenly blight tribulation. While refining this wisp of eternity substance and creation substance, her strength had stabilized greatly and reached the limit of what she could bear. It could be said that she had reached the small perfection of the early stage of the Void Dao realm. Of course, she was still very far from the threshold of the second heavenly blight tribulation, but the increase in strength was extremely obvious. She had only absorbed less than 1% of the eternity substance and creation substance and could not truly refine them. Emperor Ling estimated that with her current strength, it would take her thousands of years or even longer to completely refine them. She was overjoyed, but she was not greedy. She needed to properly digest this power and take it step by step. Therefore, after coming out of seclusion, she came to find Gu Chang'e. According to his instructions, she sent people to build a formation and forge a container in the palace to collect the power of providence accumulated by the spiritual Mound royal family over the years. Wanyan Xiu, ancestor king by Gu, and the others naturally sensed the changes in Emperor Ling's body and were shocked. This was especially so for Wanyan Xiu and the other patriarchs who knew Emperor Ling well. They had poured a lot of resources into nurturing Ling Huang and watched her grow step by step. She had reached where she was today, so everyone knew how talented she was. Originally, it was already heaven-defying that Emperor Ling could enter the Dao realm and successfully pass the first heavenly blight tribulation. However, after following Gu Chang'e, her strength had increased by 20% compared to before. This was almost impossible and inconceivable for Wanyan Xiu and the others. For a time, they were all speculating. Many patriarchs also wanted to find Emperor Ling and ask her the reason. Emperor Ling thought that she had received great benefits from Gu Chang'e. Not only did she gain his trust, but the two of them had also confided in each other previously. Naturally, it was impossible for her to tell him this. Besides, she had Gu Chang'e standing behind her. Normally, she still had to be courteous to the group of patriarchs. But now, she couldn't be bothered with them and focused on working for Gu Chang'e. The old ancestors were dissatisfied. They gnashed their teeth in hatred, but there was nothing they could do. They nurtured the spirit emperor because they wanted to nurture a puppet to better control the spiritual Mound imperial family. This would save them a lot of cultivation time. At the same time, he would collect more resources for them. Now, after this puppet had gained Gu Chang'e's favor, it no longer had any respect for these patriarchs. Their hearts were filled with hatred and helplessness. This lord's origin is mysterious and he might possess something that can help us cultivate. From a certain point of view, he bestowed it to Sovereign Ling. From a certain point of view, he also wants to tell us that if we focus on working for him, there will be many benefits. Wanyan Xiu was indeed worthy of being the great ancestor of the spiritual Mound imperial family. He possessed great wisdom and quickly guessed Gu Chang'e's goal. He quickly told the other patriarchs to be tactful and not disturb the spirit emperor, lest they anger Gu Chang'e. No matter what, the spirit emperor was now considered one of his people and not a puppet they could control. If the spirit emperor remembered their old relationship, he would speak up for the spiritual Mound imperial family in front of Gu Chang'e. On the other hand, it would bring them great trouble. Gu Chang'e saw all of this and wasn't surprised. Even the white bone ancestor king couldn't avoid this method of increasing one's strength, let alone them. Thus, while the army was gathering, some patriarchs of the spiritual Mound imperial family would occasionally pay him a visit and take the initiative to express their loyalty. Among them, some had a premonition that they would soon welcome the second heavenly blight tribulation. However, with their strength, they definitely wouldn't be able to survive this tribulation and would die without a doubt. The great increase in the spirit emperor's strength this time allowed them to see the light of hope. Gu Chang'e naturally wouldn't give out the eternity substance and creation substance so easily. He needed to spend a lot of time to condense them himself, and he felt that it wasn't enough for his usual cultivation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked the Spirit Emperor to specially collect the power of providence. The patriarchs of the spiritual Mound imperial family almost had hope written on their faces. Some even had the intention of giving up their lives for the soul light they cultivated and were willing to be slaves for Gu Chang'e. At this point, as long as they could survive, it was more important than anything else. Gu Chang'e naturally didn't agree. He didn't want to waste resources on these people. Currently, the Spirit Emperor and the White Bone Ancestor King were enough for him. If he fought with other civilizations in the future, these patriarchs of the spiritual Mound imperial family would be no different from cannon fodder in his eyes. On the other side, the war between the Dao Chang true world and the immortal spirit civilization lasted for several years. Outside the vast battlefield, tragic sounds of killing could be heard almost every day. Bloody light soared into the sky and flooded the universe. Large amounts of corpses fell from the sky like rain. Most of the runes on the world embankment had been worn away, and they were no longer as dazzling as before. The powerful warriors of the immortal spirit civilization continuously captured the ancient runes on the world embankment and analyzed the profound mysteries within. During this process, they gradually understood some of the mysteries. Then, powerful warriors who surpassed the immortal emperor realm took action and tore open a terrifying hole at the edge of the vast battlefield. The vast army charged through the hole that had been torn open. The armies of the various races in the Dao Chang true world were forced to retreat and set up camp in the vast battlefield to fight against the immortal spirit civilization. Both sides suffered great losses in this war. Several immortal kings from the Dao Chang true world had already died. The immortal emperor from the other world was heavily injured and was forced to retreat back to the Dao Chang true world to heal his wounds. Of course, the immortal spirit civilization had also suffered great losses. The terrifying demonic figure standing on the ancient warship personally entered the battlefield and tore open the rune around the vast battlefield, making it easier for the army to descend. However, during the critical moment, one of the disciples of the ancient monk Ape Zen took action. A terrifying saber glare swept out and shattered the universe, forcing the terrifying demonic figure to retreat. Only then did it stop. During the next few years, the immortal spirit civilization's army still did not choose to attack with full force. They continued testing the Dao Chang true world strength. Even so, the various races and Dao orthodoxies in the Dao Chang true world still suffered great losses. It was especially so for the immortal kings of several great races. They died in the war, and a large number of their people died. Even if the war ended, it would be difficult for them to recover in the future. Many of the ancient existences in the Dao Chang true world had already guessed the enemy's goal. As long as the war continued, the enemy would continue eating away at the Dao Chang true world's power. It was especially so for the ancient warship that looked like a shuttle. There were still many terrifying presences in it, but they had never entered the battlefield. In this sort of life and death war, the ones who played the decisive role were usually those who stood at the pinnacle of their power. This sort of existence could kill an immortal king with just one hand. They could move through the great worlds and defeat countless cultivators and living beings. I can already sense that there are 4 presences that surpass Dao realm in this true world. The strongest among them should be about the same level as me. If we really fought, he might not necessarily be my opponent. One of the other 3 presences is also very powerful, but we only need to send 2 of our people who have gone through 2 metamorphoses to deal with it. Shuiyu's gaze was aloof. Many strange substances shone on her flat face. In front of her was a crystal wall that shone with a dim light. She could clearly see the devastating war outside the Dao Chang true world. Countless living beings died. In her eyes, it was as natural as the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. She did not show any emotion on her face. In front of her, the elites of the immortal spirit civilization stood solemnly. They were also paying close attention to the war manifested in the crystal wall. When Zhuyu left her family this time, she brought many powerful warriors with her, and they belonged to the bloodline behind her. Among them, there were 6 people who had undergone a metamorphosis. Including her, there were 7 of them. This meant that there were 7 existences who had surpassed Tao realm on her side. This was an incredibly terrifying and invincible power that could completely sweep through any new civilization or true world. However, Zhuyu had always been careful. Even if her grandfather had divined her luck, she still needed to test the Dao Chang true world. That was why they had been continuously probing Dao Chang true world strength. Once they learned of its true strength, they truly attacked, paying particular attention to killing in one strike. We can truly attack now. We don't have an advantage in numbers against the Dao realm existences. Besides, I have a secret treasure of my family with me. During critical moments, I can disturb their minds. As Zhuyu spoke, her eyes shone with a cold glare. Crystalline pieces of armor appeared and covered her body, turning into a streamlined and aesthetically pleasing armor that shone with a cold light. She intended to attack personally. Once she finished speaking, she disappeared from the ancient warship with a bang and appeared in the great cosmos outside. The other figures in the ancient battlefield quickly put on their spirit armors and held their weapons before disappearing. Dao Chang True World, Heaven Crusher Alliance's headquarters. The leaders of the various races and orthodoxies were gathered there, discussing major matters with solemn expressions. The atmosphere was heavy. Ancient monk Ape Zen, Gu Wu Wang, Wine Sword Immortal, and the other existences in Dao realm were also there, but their expressions were different. In front of them was an ancient mirror that was crystalline and flat. It shone with a sparkling light and reflected the scene outside Dao Chang True World. The vast and surging army was like the torrent of the universe. It continuously pressed down and killed, and its attacks were even more astonishing and terrifying than before. What made them uneasy was that the terrifying demonic figure standing on the ancient warship had started moving. As the army approached, it wanted to descend upon Dao Chang True World. Is the enemy launching their final attack and not intending to continue probing? A veteran quasi-immortal emperor asked with a solemn expression. They should have investigated the current situation of Dao Chang True World and gained confidence, or else they wouldn't have taken the risk to launch such a large-scale attack. Another ancient existence said in a low voice. Many people's hearts turned cold at that moment. They did not know what to do. Was there any way to deal with this sort of disaster? The atmosphere in the hall was incredibly heavy and oppressive. The existences in Dao realm did not speak. The various races had suffered great losses during the war. They originally thought that they could stall for some time. But they did not expect that the enemy would come in such a menacing manner, see through the situation, and launch a full-out attack. Looks like we can only throw a cup of water into a burning cart of firewood and burn all our boats. Someone could not help but sigh, feeling that their chances of winning were slim. The enemy had clearly figured out the situation of Dao Chang True World. Once they gained confidence, they chose to launch an all-out attack. Even if the various races mobilized their armies to fight back, it was useless. The losses they had suffered over the years were simply too great. Even though it allowed the young and middle-aged prodigies of the various races to grow quickly, and quite a number of outstanding people had appeared, the price of this price was too high. However, such a price was truly too great. No one was willing to bear it. At that moment, a cult master of an ancient sect could not help but ask Gu Wu Wang and the others, Vice Alliance Master, do we still not know the Alliance Master's whereabouts? His words caused the expressions of all the people in the hall to become lively. Many gazes fell on them, and there was a hint of anticipation in them. Even some of the new youths who had appeared over the years could not help but look over. They were incredibly curious about the Alliance Master, who was rumored to have caused everyone's expressions to change, fear, and respect. These youths were all outstanding people who had appeared over the years. There were both men and women. Some had outstanding talent, some had astonishing luck, and all of them had different serendipities. Their performances in the war against the immortal spirit civilization were incredibly shocking, and they were later brought to Heaven-Slaying Alliance to be groomed. Vice Alliance Master Gu Wuwang stood in the hall in a black robe. His face was covered by a hood, and his expression could not be seen clearly. He only shook his head and said, "The Alliance Master has something important to do. We cannot rely on him for this." This answer caused many people's expressions to darken. Over the years, whenever this question was asked, Gu Wuwang's answer would always be the same. He would say that Gu Chang'e had something important to do. In the beginning, the people thought that this was true, but when they thought about it later, perhaps even the Vice Alliance Master did not know where Gu Chang'e was at that moment. His answer was only to make the people feel at ease so that their hearts would not scatter. Looks like there's a high possibility that the Alliance Master is no longer in Dao Chang True World and has long since abandoned this place. There were people who guessed that the Alliance Master had only built Heaven-Slaying Alliance out of interest and had never thought about managing it. That's right. With the Alliance Master's strength, it would be easy for him to move about freely in the vast expanse. Why would he spend so much effort to do these things? At that moment, some whispers rose in the hall. The originally oppressive atmosphere became even heavier. If this had happened in the past, perhaps no one would have dared to say such things to slander Gu Chang'e and make wild guesses about him. But now, he was no longer in Dao Chang True World. The disaster had arrived, and it was hard to say whether Dao Chang True World would still exist at that time. Who would care about such things now? Even Gu Wuwang only frowned and did not ask them to keep quiet. Right now, the only ones who were able to maintain their tranquility were the ape Zen ancient monk and his disciples. Chapter 997. Many people's gazes landed on the Dao realm existences in the hall, wanting to hear their opinions. Gu Wuwang remained silent, but his eyes seemed to be shining with light. He was calculating and thinking about something. The Wine Sword Immortal had also changed from his usual shabby appearance. His expression was incredibly solemn as he stared at the image of the great battle reflected in the ancient mirror. The multiverse in the barren lands continued crumbling. Its laws were destroyed, as if it was about to completely return to dust. Uncle Gu isn't the kind of person they say he is. When he was in Green Mountain Village, he treated people really well. How could he abandon the Dao Chang True World? Wang Xiaoniu, who had grown up a long time ago, now looked like a young swordsman. He stood on his master, the Wine Sword Immortal, and mumbled to himself softly in disbelief. In the great battle against the immortal spirit civilization, he had also shone brilliantly and killed many of his enemies. He could be considered to be a dazzling figure among his peers who were incredibly talented. At that moment, quite a number of the younger generation in the hall who had a good relationship with him could not help but start talking to him. Many people knew that Wang Xiaoniu, who had been taken in as the Wine Sword Immortal's disciple, had once called Gu Chang'e Uncle Gu. This also caused his identity to be rather unique. As for the reason, Wang Xiaoniu had never mentioned it to anyone. When they heard him call himself Uncle Gu, many people immediately had strange expressions appear on their faces, and they looked over. Wang Xiaoniu shook his head and did not say anything more about this topic. Gu Chang'e had once lived in Green Mountain Village for a period of time. Besides him and his master, the Wine Sword Immortal, very few people knew about him. The atmosphere in the hall was still heavy and oppressive. It was as if there were thick clouds pressing down on the people's heads, causing them to be unable to breathe. Many people stared at the devastating battle reflected in the ancient mirror, and they could not bear to see it, and grief rose in their hearts. I wonder if the Dao child has any news about the Alliance Master. He is highly regarded by the Alliance Master, and his strength has increased by leaps and bounds during this period of time. He almost killed a quasi-immortal emperor from the immortal spirit civilization. As long as he has enough time, he will definitely be able to reach the level of the Vice Alliance Master and the others. The Alliance Master is grooming the Tao Child as his successor. It's impossible for him to ignore the Tao Child's safety. What's more, I heard that the Alliance leader's reverse scale was fighting against the foreign enemies in the vast expanse battlefield some time ago. There's no way the Alliance leader wouldn't care about her. That's true, but the Alliance Master doesn't have to care about us. He has backup plans to protect the people around him. What are we to him? Many people began to discuss in low voices as bitterness appeared on their faces. The most talked about was Wang Wuxiang, the current Taoist of the Heaven-Slaying Alliance, and Gu Xian, who had appeared in the vast expanse battlefield a while ago and performed amazingly. Anyone who knew about the upper realm and Gu Changda's past would know about Gu Xian's identity. That was why when they found out that she was killing enemies in the boundless battlefield, many ancient existences from the Heaven-Punishing Alliance were alarmed. They personally went there to bring her back, worried that something might have happened to her. In that place, even immortal kings didn't have the confidence to protect themselves. Although she was talented, she was too young to stop the army of the immortal spirit civilization. Unfortunately, Gu Xian didn't listen to them. She continued to stay there and kill enemies, and no one dared to attack her. The Heaven-Punishing Alliance could only keep an eye on her at all times, worried that something might have happened to her. Gu Xian's performance in the boundless battlefield was extremely outstanding. She killed several immortal kings from the immortal spirit civilization. This also greatly boosted the morale of the army from the Tao Chang True World. This also allowed her to gain a lot of prestige. Many powerful warriors were willing to follow her and fight bravely in the boundless battlefield. When the news reached the Tao Chang True World, many young and middle-aged prodigies also rushed over to fight against the enemies. Even the other Tao realm existence from the Tao Chang True World, Ming, personally appeared to protect Gu Xian. He was a person from the era of Khanate legends, and in terms of seniority, he was the oldest person in the Tao Chang True World. He knew that Gu Xian was the lord who had led the Heaven-Punishing Alliance in her previous life. Gu Xian might have already reincarnated and perhaps no longer cared about her past. However, to Ming, she was still a lord who was worthy of his respect and admiration. It was a pity that Gu Xian didn't want his protection. She felt that this battle was a form of training for her. It would allow her to grow faster and make up for what she lacked in the past. When Gu Xian was mentioned, the expressions of many people in the hall changed. Ming guessed their thoughts and swept his gaze across the crowd coldly. Miss Xian's decision to train in the boundless battlefield is her own decision. It has nothing to do with the Alliance chief. It's best if you don't set your sights on Miss Xian. In his eyes, Gu Changda would definitely not ignore Gu Xian and the others. However, protecting one's family and one's lover was one thing, and protecting the entire Tao Chang True World was another. They couldn't be mixed together. Gu Changda had said it before. What did the lives of the people in the world have to do with him? Since Ming had said so, the people in the hall naturally didn't dare to say anything else. They all fell silent. At that moment, ancient monk Ape Zen had a solemn expression on his face. He put his palms together and said, "I came here with the intention of helping the immortal region get through this crisis, but I didn't expect that the enemy would be so strong. I'm weak, and I might not be able to provide much help when the time comes." He said those words because he wanted to tell the crowd the truth. If it was a matter of life and death, he would definitely not fight to the death. Before he came to the Tao Chang True World, ancient monk Ape Zen hadn't expected that the enemy they would run into would be so strong. During this period of time, the immortal spirit civilization had been investigating the Tao Chang True World's strength. On the other hand, weren't they also prying into the other party's strength? Master, Qin Feng's expression was slightly dejected. He might have the strength of an immortal king, but he wouldn't be of much use in this war. Ancient monk Ape Zen cast him a glance and shook his head. As long as you're alive, you won't have to worry about not having firewood. This disaster is difficult to deal with. You must be mentally prepared. The 9 heavens might be far away, but I still have the ability to bring you and your people there. If Tao Lord Eternal Life had not ordered him to do so, he would not have asked about Qin Feng and the Tao Chang True World. He had no choice but to do so now. When even ancient monk Ape Zen said those words, the people's expressions became even more distressed. Quite a number of them felt despair, unable to see any hope. No matter what, this disaster is something all of us will have to face. It's useless to place our hopes on anyone at this moment. Even if we die in the end, we will make the invaders pay the price. An ancient existence in the hall sighed, no longer placing his hopes on Gu Changa. No one could guess Gu Changa's thoughts and plans, so how could they be sure whether he was planning to protect the Tao Chang True World? Before this, Gu Changa did not have a good reputation. When his name was mentioned, it was accompanied by fear. Instead of placing their hopes on the vague hopes of Gu Changa, it was better to truly rely on themselves. What are your plans, Vice Alliance leader? We can only rely on you now. Some people cast their gazes on Gu Wuwang. Besides ancient monk Ape Zen, Gu Wuwang could be considered the strongest expert in the Tao Chang True World. If he could turn the tide, then perhaps there would be a chance for a change in the situation. The long river of destiny has not dried up. Even if it is a disaster, there is still life. Gu Wuwang said calmly. The instant his words left his mouth, a frightening scene suddenly appeared in the ancient mirror. At the edge of the vast battlefield, a terrifyingly large black hand suddenly descended from the starfields. Along with the fragments of time and the great Tao, it tore through the great cosmoses and sank them. This is bad. The existence in Tao realm has taken action. The immortal spirit civilization is about to launch a full attack. When they saw this, Ming and the Wine Sword Immortals' expressions changed, and they instantly disappeared from the hall. The leaders of the various races were also shocked and horrified. They turned into divine light and rushed out to look at the vast battlefield. Even if there was an endless distance between them, they could see that the sky had shattered and was completely pierced through. Terrifying waves of power pressed down and covered the entire area. The great Tao trembled, and the light on the world dike was quickly extinguished. The pillars of light that could easily destroy an army crumbled in an instant, turning into a rain of light that broke through the dike and scattered in all directions. A terrifying figure seemed to be standing in the depths of multiple dimensions of time and space, looking down at the entire Tao Chang True World coldly. He stretched out his hand, which was as black as ink, and pierced through the great cosmoses below him layer by layer. It covered the entire world. Mountains and rivers collapsed, planets exploded, and the cosmos was instantly torn to ashes. No living being or cultivator could stop it. It was like smoke that scattered when the wind blew. It disintegrated in midair and disappeared. Boom! The hand shuddered lightly, and many of the broken universes at the edge of the vast battlefield crumbled and disintegrated. The ancient worship that rested there even more so exploded, completely shattering. The great river of time was directly evaporated. No matter what sort of living being it was, they could not withstand this sort of wave of power. It was a wave of power that completely crushed them. This was the wave of power when an existence in Tao realm attacked. He merely stretched out his hand and did not use any divine abilities, but it could already be said to be able to destroy the world and reopen the chaos. Rumble. The laws of the world crashed into each other. The laws of Tao were obliterated, and violent sounds of turbulence rang out. Behind the terrifying figure was an even larger army from the immortal spirit civilization. It was so vast that it covered the sky and the sun. The terrifying fog stretched across the heavens and the earth, as if there was no end in sight. Boundless black clouds covered the sky, shrouding the entire area in all directions. Behind the army stood many terrifying figures. They were too large, and their presences were incredibly terrifying. They were so oppressive that everyone found it hard to breathe. The immortal spirit civilization invaded on a large scale. An endless army rushed out from the shuttle-shaped ancient warship. Worlds opened up one after another, and more living beings surged out. They were endless, completely drowning the world. Everyone, listen to my orders. Break through the barriers of the worlds and slaughter all existences above immortal realm in this true world. The terrifying figure who attacked gave the order. The hand did not retreat and continued to strike down. It wanted to break through the barriers of the world so that the army could rush over more easily. Boom! A violent tremor rang out, as if it wanted to destroy all the universes. You're courting death. The Wine Sword Immortal rushed out and sent out a sword aura that could cut through space and time and annihilate the laws of Tao. He wanted to cut down the hand. Since the existence in Tao realm from the immortal spirit civilization had attacked, he naturally had nothing to say. He fought the other party to the death. In an instant, his figure pierced through many spaces and appeared in the endless world beyond. Laughable. You want to stop us with just this amount of power? Over the countless years, there are plenty of true worlds that are much stronger than you. If you know what's good for you, don't fight back. Become our slaves and serve as our slaves. Then, you can continue to live. Another person from the immortal spirit civilization who was equivalent to Tao realm appeared. There was a strange ripple around him, as if he did not exist in reality. It also seemed like he had been placed in the universe and was always there. At the edge of the vast battlefield, Abyss rushed out. With an aloof expression, he fought against that person. When the battle erupted, the remaining waves alone were enough to make immortal kings explode. Boom! At that moment, figures rushed out from many directions in Tao Chang True World. Their levels of cultivation varied. Some were equivalent to immortal kings, and some were quasi-immortal emperors. They continued fighting. The world was overturned, and the great cosmos collapsed. The immortal spirit civilization's army was like a hot knife through butter. They could not fight back. In another direction, existences equivalent to Tao realm appeared as well. The hand only shook, and space and time were destroyed. Forget immortal kings, even immortal emperors coughed up blood and exploded. At that moment, ancient monk Ape Zen had no choice but to bring his disciple to fight against those existences equivalent to Tao realm as well. Fortunately, his level of cultivation was stronger, and he was only slightly weaker than Gu Wuwang. Those enemies were also equivalent to those who had gone through their first and second decay in Tao realm, so they could somewhat handle them. The final battle came too suddenly, and no one was prepared for it. Many people in Tao Chang True World did not even manage to react to it. In just an instant, the vast battlefield was lost, and a large part of the universe fell. Many regions crumbled and disintegrated in an instant. The cultivators and living beings in them did not even have the chance to react before they turned into a rain of light. Countless people were fighting, from immortal kings to mortal Tao domain cultivators. Within the various small worlds, sounds of battle could also be heard. Gu Xian was bathed in blood. He fought against several immortal kings alone, but he still had the strength to help the other people in the battlefield. In another region, his younger sister, Shen Xian was also fighting. Her black hair was dyed in blood, and there were many wounds on her body. No one was spared from the battle that affected the entire Tao Chang True World. The immortal spirit civilization's army came in too fiercely, and it was far more terrifying than any of the previous attacks. There were also Tao realm existences supporting them, and they broke through the barriers of the great cosmos. The Tao Chang True World's army could only retreat continuously. In the blink of an eye, many of the cosmoses outside the immortal region were occupied. Many people's eyes turned red, and they fought without any regard for their own safety. If they continued retreating, then their final line of defense would crumble. The heartland of Tao Chang True World, the worlds and cosmoses where the various races and orthodoxies were located would welcome a destructive blow. Chapter 998. The worlds were in turmoil. An endless amount of blood-red light surged into the heavens. Large swathes of universes collapsed under the battle. The cultivators living in them exploded continuously under the attacks of the immortal spirit civilization's army. Their bodies and souls were destroyed. Many figures rushed out of the Dao Chang true world. To fight against the army, they fought to the death, not caring about anything else. Even if they died, they would make the other party pay a terrible price. Boom! In the depths of the universe in the distance, blood-red light surged into the heavens. An immortal king faced two people of the same level, but in the end, he could not win against them and chose to self-destruct. The fruit of Tao crumbled, and a terrifying power shook the entire river of time, heavily injuring the two enemies. Their bodies exploded, and they were forced to retreat. But even so, they could not stop the immortal spirit civilization's army. There was not even the slightest sign of slowing them down. There was still a shocking battle erupting in the depths of spacetime. Those were ripples of power belonging to immortal emperors. Among the few remaining immortal emperors in the Dao Chang true world, there was one who was fighting against his opponent. A terrifying aura burst forth at that moment, turning into black light that shattered the fog of chaos to reveal his appearance. It was a middle-aged man with black hair that fell on his shoulders. His chi surged, and his eyes were like a sea of lightning that could see through time and space. This was the first time he revealed his true appearance before others, but his current state was not right. He was injured. There were people of the same level as him from the immortal spirit civilization who sensed his ripples of power and descended to kill him with their companions. The ripples of power from the battle between immortal emperors had already spread to other dimensions, not the current one. But even if a hint of it leaked out, it would be a devastating disaster to the other living beings. Compared to the immortal spirit civilization, the Dao Chang true world's foundation was too weak, especially since they had not recovered from the second calamity. On the other side, the great commander from the immortal palace's surviving races was also fighting against someone of the same level as him. His silver armor was dyed in blood, and he held a silver spear. The light from his spear cut through the universe and shook it. His opponent was also someone of the same level as him. He had fought against the immortal emperor from the other world before, and he also had companions by his side. The two of them worked together to fight against him and firmly gained the upper hand. They did not even use their full strength. The immortal emperor from the other world had been injured badly when he fought against this person outside the vast expanse. He had yet to heal, and it was difficult for him to bring out his peak state. These were the immortal emperors that the Dao Chang true world could fight against as of then. They could not compare to their opponents at all. On the ancient warship that was shaped like a flying shuttle, there were a few figures that were shrouded in the dust of primal chaos. They didn't make a move, and they just watched coldly and watched the situation of the battle. Without a doubt, this was also an existence on the level of immortal emperor realm. Spacetime fragments and great Tao mists curled around his body, suppressing the universe to the point where it was about to collapse and explode. The power of the new true world and the ancient true world could not be surpassed. Even with Dao Chang true world's current power, it was impossible for it to hope to fight against them. And this was only a portion of the power of one of the clans in the immortal spirit civilization. If the immortal spirit civilization decided to invade with all their forces, then true Dao Chang world would definitely not have a chance to fight back. Not to mention that there were two figures comparable to the Dao realm who were still standing there without making a move. That incomparable pressure made it hard for the army from Dao Chang true world to breathe. It was as if they were suffocating. Their souls trembled, and they were filled with fear and despair. Are you still going to put up a desperate struggle? You are not the immortal spirit civilization's opponent at all. Be smart and seal your own limbs and arcane powers. Then, you might be able to keep your lives. The immortal spirit civilization has fought in the vast expanse world and destroyed countless true worlds. The true worlds that were far stronger than you were all reduced to ashes and buried under our feet. It is your honor to be enslaved by us. Aren't you going to be grateful? Zhuyu was clad in armor. His entire body shone as he stood outside Dao Chang True World. There was an aloof look on his face, and the ripples of his voice spread through the various universes and great worlds. When countless living beings and cultivators heard his words, they lifted their heads in fear and terror. She appeared there with a terrifying presence that surpassed those in Dao realm spreading out from her body. It covered the sky. All sorts of terrifying substances surrounded her. Some of them were like flowing streams of light, some were like heavenly lightning, some were like flames. They did not have a definite shape, as if they were an unknown deity that had transcended the world. This is truly a rare blood-red feast. The blood-red flower is so beautiful, but it's a pity that it will soon wither again. Another blurry figure beside Zhuyu spoke as well. He had a cruel and callous smile on his face. He treated the great battle as a beautiful sight and admired the blood-red flower that bloomed in the universe. This was another existence in Dao realm who had not attacked. He was also a supreme warrior from the immortal spirit civilization who had gone through a metamorphosis in his heart. His strength was only below Zhuiyu's. We have no grudge against you, so why did you descend and slaughter us? An ancient existence in Dao Chang True World roared furiously with bloodshot eyes and bone-deep hatred in his heart. He had lived for a long time, but his level of cultivation was only that of a true immortal. In the great battle, he could only be cannon fodder. He could only watch as many of the people he was familiar with died, crumbled, disintegrated, and turned into blood fog. This filled his heart with hatred and pain. He wanted to kill all the invaders to quell the anger in his heart. Why are we talking to them? Even if I have to sacrifice my last drop of blood, I will not submit. I will make them pay the price. There was also an ancient cultivator roaring furiously in another great cosmos. His entire body shone with light, and he chose to self-destruct to fight against his enemies. The situation in the other great cosmoses was also incredibly tragic. Some people were covered in wounds. Their blood had almost run dry, but they were still fighting against their enemies. Master has passed away, and we have been stuck in this realm for many years. It's difficult for us to improve. We have let down our master. Today, I hope that we can protect Master's homeland with this remaining body. In a land of a great sect that had already fallen, several old men whose blood had dried up used the last of their strength to burn their essence. Crimson rays of light rushed out from the top of their skulls, and they led all their disciples to charge forward. So what if we burn the last bit of our remaining strength today? We are cultivators who practice the will of heaven and follow our hearts. Why should we be afraid of a battle? We will live and die together with Dao Chang True World. In another great cosmos, old men with white hair and stubble on their beards walked out of their land. Their chi had long since declined, but they were not afraid of death. They wanted to continue fighting for their foundation. Their levels of cultivation were different. The strong were already in the immortal realm, and the weak were only in the mortal realm. Kill them. Countless cultivators and living beings rushed forward. They had long since cast aside all thoughts of life and death. Their eyes were filled with madness. Foolish living beings, you are ants trying to shake a tree, a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You overestimate yourself. The figure beside Zhuyu watched all of this with disdain. His eyes were filled with indifference. Zhuyu was also indifferent. She did not show any change in her expression. She had seen this too many times. Many people in the true worlds occupied by the immortal spirit civilization were like this. They wanted to fight to the death to protect their homeland. But so what? It would not change anything. But there's something strange, there was still some doubt in Zhuiyu's heart. She had noticed some abnormalities. The living beings who had died did not seem to have truly had their bodies and souls destroyed. There seemed to be some sort of power protecting these souls, not letting them completely disappear. If you want to destroy this world, then you must think carefully about what sort of price you will have to pay. Gu Wuwang's figure also appeared at that moment. He appeared in front of Zhuyu and spoke calmly. He did not attack immediately. Although he was not weaker than Zhuyu, the immortal spirit civilization had always been mysterious. Their method of existence was very unique, and it was very difficult to completely kill them. Besides, there was another existence beside him who was only slightly weaker. If they fought, she would definitely lose. Zhuyu was not surprised to see him appear. She only said coldly, "My immortal spirit civilization has dominated the vast expanse for countless eras. This is the first time I've heard a new true world threaten us." The figure beside her was called Zhuohua. He let out a derisive laugh. "Sir, could it be that you think you can stop all of us by yourself? Since it was not easy for you to reach this step, it's best if you don't seek your own death. Why don't you let us leave behind a soul imprint so that we can control you? Perhaps in the future, you will have a chance to transform." The new true world might have the spark of the immortal Tao civilization, but it had not yet fully developed. However, even if it had grown to the level of an ancient true world, it would not be able to make the immortal spirit civilization pay attention to it. After all, the immortal spirit civilization could be considered as one of the most powerful civilizations below the most powerful civilizations. It was ranked in the upper middle. The turbid race behind them alone had the power and resources to sweep through some of the ancient true worlds. Gu Wuwang's expression was still very calm. He was not affected by the words of the two people. He simply said, "I'm just reminding you of this. If you stop now, give the various races enough compensation, kneel down, and repent sincerely, there may be a chance for things to turn around. Otherwise, when the time comes, the civilization behind you will face a great calamity and be destroyed. At that time, you will regret what you did today." Gu Wuwang spoke very calmly, as if he was explaining something very simple. "I think you've gone mad. Look at the situation now, and you're still saying such foolish words. Do you think we're stupid? That will face a great disaster. Do you think we're easy to fool? That a new true world can't even fight against one of our warships, and that our civilization will face destruction?" Before Zhuyu could speak, Zhuohua, who was beside her, sneered again. His voice spread through all the universes and great worlds without bothering to hide it. He thought that Gu Wuwang had gone mad. Perhaps he knew that he could not turn the situation around at the last moment, so he wanted to trick them. What a joke. This is just a painful struggle before death. It's just a baseless fantasy. When the powerful warriors of the immortal spirit civilization who were fighting in the other battlefields and spacetime heard these words, they could not help but laugh loudly. Many of them had pity on their faces, as if they were watching an ant struggling in pain before death. Many of the powerful warriors in the Dao Chang true world knew what Gu Wuwang meant. There was originally some hope in their eyes, but in the blink of an eye, it faded away. Zhuiyu's eyes flickered. She remembered the uniqueness of this true world. Since the flame seed of the immortal Tao had been left behind, then there must have been an unfathomable existence who had once stayed in this true world. Could this person be talking about that unfathomable existence? Grandfather divined for me that there won't be any danger. This person is just trying to trick us. If there was really such an existence keeping watch over this true world, why would he only appear now and say these things? When Zhuyu thought of this, her expression became aloof again. She laughed coldly. "Unfortunately, your tricks are useless against us. I've already seen through your plans. You can't trick us." Gu Wuwang sighed in his heart. In truth, he did not have much hope. He only wanted to stall for time, but he did not expect that Zhuohua would see through it so quickly. However, he still said calmly, "I hope you won't regret it in the future. That Lord's rage is not something the civilization behind you can quell. You're just asking for death." Zhuohua's expression turned cold. He did not expect that Gu Wuwang would continue saying those words. It made him angry, and he attacked. He and Gu Wuwang instantly fought. Their figures filled the entire universe in an instant as they rushed into the world beyond. Zhuyu also knew that Gu Wuwang was the strongest person in Dao Chang True World at the moment. As long as he got rid of him, there would be no hope for the war. It would soon end. She also attacked. Her boundlessly powerful presence was far stronger than that of any of the Dao realm existences. Time and space exploded, and the chaos became chaotic. The countless living beings in Dao Chang True World noticed this scene, and they were incredibly worried and terrified. Even the Abyss, Wine Sword Immortal, and the others who were fighting against the other Dao realm cultivators from the Immortal Spirit civilization were no exception. Progenitor, in a great cosmos, Gu Xian also noticed this scene. She put away her worry, and her gaze was calm and cold. Her figure moved like a swan as she moved through the universe. Her sword swept through the air, and the sword light moved through millions of lies. It cut down planets, cut galaxies, and cut through universes. The Immortal Spirit Civilization's army that rushed forward was cut into pieces and turned into ashes under the sword light. At the same time she fought against the two immortal kings, she still had the strength to stop the army's attack. Xian, if this continues, there will be no way to break out of this situation. There are simply too many enemies. No matter how strong you are, sooner or later, you will be exhausted to death. Hurry up and retreat. Don't continue taking risks. By her side, the big red bird shouted anxiously. It was incredibly worried and did not think that Gu Xian could continue holding on. There were simply too many powerful warriors from the Immortal Spirit Civilization. She could still fight back and forth against the Immortal Kings. However, once she ran into an existence that surpassed the Immortal Kings, accidents might happen. Chapter 999. I can't retreat. If I retreat, who will protect the villagers of Peach Village? Who will protect Master, Village Chief, and the others? Gu Xianer shook her head. Her breathing was very calm, and her tone was also very calm. As she spoke, she sent out another wave of sword aura. It swept through millions of miles and stopped the charging army. Girl, why are you so foolish? Even if you stay here, you won't be able to stop them. You're so stupid. With your talent, you should just find a place and cultivate for a few hundred years. Then, you'll be able to easily defeat these people. The big red bird was anxious. It felt like there was something wrong with this girl's head. At this juncture, she was not thinking about running for her life but still wanted to resist. If the other immortal emperors were to free themselves or notice them, how was she supposed to fight against them? After all, the life-saving items Gu Chang'e had given her had all been used up in the heavenly tomb. Gu Xianer did not have any life-saving items now. Previously, she still had her masters and Tao Yao to protect her. But now, if she really encountered a life-threatening situation, then only death would await her. I know what you said, but I can only do my best. I cannot watch these people die miserably and do nothing. Besides, I was once the true mountain and sea world's Tao child. This world used the kismet of all eras to help me grow. I am indebted to it. Gu Xianer's expression was very calm. As she quickly attacked, she answered. How could she not know this? But if she chose to flee at this moment, then she would be betraying her Tao heart. This was definitely not her character and choice. As soon as Gu Xianer finished speaking, she felt as if there was some kind of power supporting her from the unseen world. Her nascent divinity was shining. The essence of the heaven incarnation she had absorbed earlier was turning into a vast amount of magic power. Your nascent divinity is transforming into the light of a quasi-immortal emperor. It might only be a hint, but it's just an opportunity. The big red bird could not help but be shocked. It could only be said that Gu Xianer was indeed a person born to face calamity. During the battle, her nascent divinity actually gave birth to an opportunity to transform. If the transformation went smoothly, she could break through and become a quasi-immortal emperor in one go. Her strength would undergo a tremendous change. Chi. At that moment, in another direction, there were tens of millions of cold knife lights. They were also whistling over. They were going to split the great universe. The other two opponents were also taking action, their faces carrying anger. They never thought that they would be held back by a young girl, unable to take her down in a short period of time. They were existences comparable to immortal kings. Even in the immortal spirit civilization, they were supreme experts who ruled over many worlds and were extremely powerful. The young girl in front of them was clearly young, but her cultivation was not inferior to theirs. Let's join hands and quickly capture this woman. Don't let her complete her transformation. Otherwise, none of us will be her match. One of them coldly grunted. He noticed the change in Gu Xian. His words shook the entire universe, and he showed no mercy. Gu Xian raised her jade-like hand. The fluctuations of her Tao filled the air, turning into an immortal ancient shield. It shone with resplendent light and blocked this attack. How terrifying were the shockwaves from the battle between Zhu Qiu immortal kings. Boom! A great explosion happened here. It was as if countless stars exploded. The radiance was dazzling, making it hard for one to open their eyes. It was enough to destroy all Tao laws. Her figure trembled slightly, retreating several tens of thousands of li in the cosmos before stabilizing her body. Then, she brandished her sword again. Sword energy scattered out, millions and millions of strands covering the sky dome, shaking up the long river of time, cleansing past and present. Gu Xian fought a great battle against them again. Sword energy and knife light weaved about, wreaking havoc in this ruined cosmos. Tao laws shattered. In that instant, they were blasted into ashes. At this time, even if other immortal kings entered this place, they would still be in danger. Countless strands of destructive aura extended, continuously seeping in, wiping out everything. The void was already riddled with holes, filled with great rifts. Strong winds blew out, biting cold and soul-shattering. Immortal spirit civilization's two immortal king-level experts' methods were tyrannical and powerful. One of them brandished a black heavenly blade light enough to sever the great cosmos. It was boundlessly brilliant, crushing down. It was bone-chilling cold, like an autumn wind that swept through the heavens, bringing with it a destructive aura. The other person's methods weren't simple either. When his large hand was brandished, all kinds of terrifying methods swept through the sky, cutting through space and time, directly slaughtering towards Gu Xian, killing intent on full display. Immortal king laws that blotted out the sky and covered the earth descended with a loud rumble. In an instant, they submerged this battlefield, causing the endless void to suddenly explode. Then, there was another blade, extremely strange. The aura seemed to have come from the long river of time, releasing the immortal will and killing intent of an immortal king, shocking the entire world. These two immortal king existences had been familiar with each other for many years, often sparring and discussing the Tao together on how to cooperate against enemies. When they joined forces, even if it was three immortal kings of the same level, they could still contend against them. Gu Xian's beautiful brows furrowed, momentarily encountering a dangerous situation. She quickly retreated towards the great cosmos behind her, instantly retreating millions and millions of li. However, the two's killing moves were like maggots in one's bones, following closely behind. The star domains along the way exploded and collapsed, directly collapsing. The entire cosmos was about to explode, unable to bear this type of aftermath at all. I already told you not to force yourself. If something unexpected happens to you, if Gu Changde finds out, he won't be able to obliterate my true soul. The big red bird couldn't help but cry out in alarm, its eyes revealing human-like fear. Gu Xian didn't have time to pay it any attention, firing out streak after streak of great Tao symbols, divine light brilliant, every single symbol the size of a star, trying to resist the two's killing moves. However, these two immortal kings were much more powerful than the immortal kings she faced before, to the extent where she felt like they were about to reach half-immortal emperor level. Under their joint attacks, the other immortal kings would instantly explode into bloody mist. If not for Gu Xian, being powerful, far exceeding ordinary immortal kings, she might have long been injured as well. In the heavenly tomb, she obtained many magical artifacts. Right now, they were all activated, flying out. However, most of them were damaged, precious pagodas, ancient cauldrons, all of them turning into dazzling divine light, all of them smashing towards the two. Boom! The universe trembled, and the black blade light flew past. These magical artifacts trembled, then exploded, turning into powder that dissipated. Where do you think you're going? The immortal king who attacked had a cold expression. There seemed to be a huge star rotating in his eyes that could obliterate all things. It was impossible for them to let Gu Xian, complete her metamorphosis. At that moment, they attacked with all their strength and also activated their own immortal king magical artifacts. Ugh, Gu Xian, coughed out a mouthful of blood. Her skirt, which was already stained with blood, became even redder. She continued retreating towards the great universe behind her. Time and space became blurry as she avoided the other immortal king's killing move. In the other battlefields, quite a number of people noticed this scene, and worry appeared on their faces. However, at that moment, they couldn't spare any energy to help Gu Xian. Even they themselves were like clay bodhisattvas crossing a river, unable to protect themselves. The battle on Gu Xian's side was only a small part of the entire battlefield. The Dao Chang True World's foundation was far inferior to the immortal spirit civilizations. The difference in the number of powerful warriors was too obvious, and there was already a clear cut. The immortal spirit civilization could send out 2 or even 3 people at the same level as them to fight against the Dao Chang True World. At that moment, even if someone with astonishing talent could fight against several people at the same time, sooner or later, they would be exhausted. On the other side, the battle was equally shocking. The battle between those in Dao realm was no longer something that cultivators in the path of immortals could see. Many dimensions were shattered. They could only see a blurry hand slapping through the air. Even the river of time had evaporated. An endless amount of Dao fragments flew into the air and rushed towards the broken universes. Miss Xian, Abyss, who was fighting against his opponent, frowned. He noticed the situation on Gu Xian's side. You still have time to pay attention to others when you're fighting against me? You should worry about your own life first. His opponent was a figure who looked like an alien race. He did not reveal his true form, and there was a mocking expression on his flat face. They stood in an unworldly land, lawless and lawless. The shockwaves from their fight could give birth to the power of world's birth and destruction. When they fought, they could see the evolution of the great world and the collapse of the great universe. Light washed over the entire river of time, shining from ancient times until now. This could no longer be described as a Dao spell or divine ability. It was already an unpredictable and unfathomable power. It could create a world, but it could also destroy it. The world in front of them seemed complete, but in truth, in the eyes of those in Dao realm, it had already been born and destroyed countless times. Abyss sighed. Although Gu Xian was in danger, he did not have the time to care about other things. He was held back by his opponent and could not help. Xian, don't force yourself. When it's time to save your life, it's most important. The big red bird flapped its wings. As the artifact spirit of Gu Xian's former weapon, it did not have much power now and could not help her at this time. When it saw the 2 immortal kings charging at it with full power again, it was also very anxious and worried. Gu Xian ignored it. He tried to condense the light of a quasi-immortal emperor while dodging the opponent's attacks. The great universe trembled, quickly collapsing. Under the attacks of the immortal kings, it was quickly torn apart. I got it. You little girl, don't tell me you want to risk your life to force Gu Changa out. At this time, the big red bird seemed to have suddenly thought of something, shouting out loudly. Gu Xian was just about to bring out the Dao sword, release an ultimate strike, but her figure almost staggered. She really couldn't stand this chattering big red bird anymore. Her delicate and fair fists clenched, wanting to throw it away. Shut up. I have the ability to deal with these two enemies, I don't need that fella to save me. However, you seem to have reminded me. Gu Xian scolded it softly and then muttered to it in a low voice. Even when facing this type of danger, she still didn't truly feel any worry about retreating. Realm shaking shadowless, immediately afterwards, she took a deep breath, her eyes calm. A drop of blood that carried resplendent radiance flew out from between her brows, landing on the Dao sword she always held. A terrifying ray of light rushed into the sky, wanting to tear apart the world. She did not hesitate. The Dao sword she brought out swung out once again. It let out clanging sounds, as if it wanted to turn the world upside down. At that moment, endless shadows of swords appeared beside her. They were not illusions, but were formed by the ultimate law of the Tao of sword. In an instant, countless flying swords moved about freely in the great universe. Some were as red as blood, some were yellow like the morning sun, some were blue like the ocean, some were like the sun, some were like the brilliant moon. Countless shadows of swords slashed down like long arcs that could destroy the universe. They were densely packed together, endless, and turned into a universe of swords. Why did she suddenly become so much stronger? The expressions of the two immortal kings who were chasing after her changed at that moment. They did not expect that the girl would have such a method. The war in Dao Chang True World swept through all universes and worlds from the vast expanse battlefield. Practically no races were spared, and they were all fighting against each other. At that moment, in the headquarters of the Heaven Crusher Alliance. On an island surrounded by rising rays of light and surging immortal aura, Wang Wuxiang sat cross-legged on the island. The dazzling light of a quasi-immortal emperor appeared in his sea of consciousness, and his entire person seemed to have undergone some sort of shocking change. The devastating war in the world outside did not seem to affect him at all. The more people who die in this war, the better. When the time comes, I'll come and clean up the mess. I can use the power of the fragmented souls who died to restore the life force of the Abyss Defiance. It's about time that the great show of possession of Dao Chang True World begins. Wang Wuxiang was Ni Chen. He looked at the scene in the sky without joy or sorrow on his face. He did not participate in the war. That was not all. There were many presences comparable to immortal kings lying in wait on the island. There were also several quasi-immortal emperors guarding the island. Even if the great army of the immortal spirit civilization arrived, they could fight against them without fear. As a Tao child of the Heaven Crusher Alliance, he had roped in many races over the years, and there was no lack of super elites who surpassed immortal kings among them. Unfortunately, there was no one comparable to Tao Realm by his side as of then. However, the war of the immortal spirit civilization's invasion of Dao Chang True World was the best opportunity for Ni Chen. The secrets of the universe were in chaos at the moment, and all the powerful warriors were fighting against their enemies. Even Gu Wuwang and the others did not have the time to care about other things, so how could they notice his small actions? He already had the power of a quasi-immortal emperor. As long as he completely possessed this true world, his power would jump to the level of Dao Realm. At that time, he would be equivalent to the new true spirit of Dao Chang True World, and the power he could bring out in this true world would be even greater. After the war, both the Dao Chang True World and the power of the immortal spirit civilization would definitely not be at their peak. With the unique innate talent of the Abyss Defiance, Ni Chen could definitely seize the chance to possess and refine the other existences in Dao Realm. As long as he could successfully take over a person's body, his advantage would snowball like a rolling snowball. At that time, I will be invincible in this true world. Ni Chen's eyes were filled with ambition. At that moment, his nascent divinity spread out like fog. In an instant, it covered 1,000,000 lis. While the chaos was going on, it started spreading in all directions. The arrangements he had made over the years were starting to come into effect. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.